Hey everyone! Welcome back to our podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Mia. Today we're diving into one of the most common but also one of the most important questions. Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, this question shows up everywhere. Job interviews, first dates, meeting new people, or even just self-reflection. But it's not as simple as it sounds.
Exactly. People either freeze up or give way too much information, but telling your story is an art. And today, Alex and I are going to explore it deeply. We'll share our personal journeys, our struggles, our funny, awkward moments, and how to shape this answer in different contexts.
And since our listeners love long conversations, we're going to take our time, really unpack this topic, and hopefully give you something meaningful. And maybe a laugh or two.
So grab a coffee, get comfy, and let's jump in.
All right, Mia, let's start at the beginning. If I ask you right now, tell me about yourself, where does your mind go first? Childhood? Career? Personality?
Good question. Honestly, I always start with childhood because it shaped so much of who I am. I grew up in a small town, surrounded by fields, lots of open space. My family was really close-knit, and I think that gave me this love for community.
That makes sense. And you've always been the type to value connection over competition. I remember when we first met, you were the one who actually broke the ice. Meanwhile, I was the awkward one in the corner, sipping water like it was a life raft.
Yes! I remember that. You looked like you were rehearsing a speech in your head.
I was. Because for me, tell me about yourself was always this pressure-filled moment. Like, how do you condense your entire existence into a neat little package?
Exactly. That's why I think it helps to start with a story. For example, when I say I grew up in a small town, that immediately paints a picture. It gives people a frame of reference.
True. Okay, so let me share my version. I grew up in the city, loud, busy, and full of diversity. I think that shaped me differently. I learned to adapt quickly because every day you'd meet someone new from a different background.
And that explains why you're so good at blending in with any group. You can talk to anyone about anything.
Yeah, but the downside was I often felt like I didn't know who I was because I was constantly shifting to fit different circles.
That's interesting. So even when you introduce yourself, do you feel like you adjust your answer depending on the audience?
All the time. In a professional setting, I highlight my career. With friends, I lean into hobbies and humor. On a date, I might talk more about values and passions. It's like there isn't one single tell me about yourself. There are many versions.
Exactly. And that's something people don't realize. Your answer doesn't have to be static. It should adapt and not fake, but relevant to the moment.
Yes, Mia.
Alex, what you said about having multiple versions of yourself really resonates. I think school is where that starts, honestly. Like, for me, I was the quiet, smart kid in elementary school, but by high school, I was suddenly the artsy theater girl. People's labels can shape how you introduce yourself. That's interesting. Did that bother you, or did you actually like being flexible?
A bit of both. On one hand, it was lonely because I didn't feel fully claimed by any group. But on the other, it gave me this skill of connecting quickly, picking up on social cues, and learning different languages of belonging. That really helped later in life.
I get that. My thing was perfectionism. Like, my self-introduction always had to sound polished. Even in high school, when teachers asked me to introduce yourself to the class, I would rehearse in my head, I'm Mia, I'm in drama club, I like reading novels. I wanted it to sound good, not awkward.
Wait. You mean to tell me you rehearsed your "Hi, I'm Mia" speech? That's next level.
Yes! Don't judge me, but you know what's funny? Looking back, nobody cared. Everyone was too worried about themselves. And that's one of the biggest secrets about introductions. Most people aren't analyzing you as much as you think.
Exactly. It's like the spotlight effect. You think everyone is staring at you, but really, they're busy worrying about their own "tell me about yourself."
Yes.
Okay, let's fast forward to college. Because that's where I really started experimenting with identity. In my freshman year, every introduction felt like a new chance to reinvent myself. I could say, "I'm Alex, a business student," or "I'm Alex into music," or "I'm Alex who grew up in the city." And each one would shift how people saw me.
Wow, that's so true. College is almost like a reset button. For me, it was the first time I wasn't defined by old labels. People didn't know me as the theater kid. I could introduce myself however I wanted, and that freedom was exciting, but also scary.
Right, because freedom means you have to choose, and choosing is hard. Did you ever feel like you were editing yourself depending on the group you were in?
All the time. With my classmates, I'd highlight academics. With my dorm friends, I'd lean into hobbies. With professors, I'd go all professional. But deep down, I was trying to figure out which version of me was the real one.
Same. And I think that's the heart of the "tell me about yourself" question. It forces you to confront identity, not just what you do, but who you are.
Yes. And honestly, the first few years of adulthood, I didn't have a clue how to answer that. When I got my first job interview and they asked, "So, tell me about yourself," I froze. I was like, do I talk about my resume? My hobbies? My goals?
Classic struggle. I remember my first interview too. I panicked and started rambling about my favorite books. And the interviewer looked at me like, "We meant your career."
Alex, I would have paid to see that.
Yeah, lesson learned. Tailor your answer. Context matters.
Okay, let's unpack that. Tailoring your answer. Because some people hear that and think it's fake, like you're performing. But I think it's more like choosing the highlight reel that's most relevant.
Yes. Exactly. It's like when you're making a trailer for a movie. You don't show the entire film, you just show the parts that match the audience you're speaking to. That doesn't mean the rest of the movie is fake, it just means you're being strategic. Arifon gizik.
Well said. And that's why I think authenticity and adaptability can coexist. You can be genuine while still framing your story in a way that fits the situation.
Yeah, otherwise imagine me introducing myself on a date by reciting my entire resume. Hi, I'm Alex, proficient in Excel spreadsheets, 5 years of project management.
Oh, wow, Alex, so romantic. Please tell me more about those pivot tables.
Exactly. Wrong setting. But in a job interview, that might actually impress someone, so it's not about lying, it's about relevance.
Right. And I think the people who struggle most with tell me about yourself are the ones who either overshare, like giving a full autobiography, or undershare, like just saying, I'm Mia, and then awkward silence.
Yes! There's a sweet spot in between, enough to start a conversation, but not so much that you overwhelm.
Yeah!
Alright, Mia, let's move into the career years. Because once you graduate, the question, tell me about yourself, suddenly feels like it's all about jobs and LinkedIn summaries.
Totally. And it gets tricky. I remember in my early 20s, every introduction felt like a competition, like people would ask, "So what do you do?" And if you didn't have an impressive answer, you felt small.
Oh, I know that feeling. I had a job I wasn't proud of at first, and when someone asked me to tell them about myself, I'd sort of downplay it. I didn't realize that even an ordinary job can be framed in an interesting way if you highlight the story behind it.
Yes. Storytelling makes all the difference. Like instead of saying I'm an assistant, you can say I help keep teams running smoothly and make sure projects stay on track. Same job, different impact.
Exactly. And honestly, early career is when I learned to use the question as a way to project confidence, even if I didn't fully feel it inside. Kind of like fake it till you make it.
Yeah, I get that. For me, the turning point was realizing that careers don't define your whole identity. Because I used to lead with my job title every single time someone asked about me. But then I thought, wait, what happens if I change careers? Does that mean my whole identity disappears?
That's deep. And I've been there too. Like, if your answer is just, I'm Alex and I'm a project manager, then what happens if tomorrow you're not? So I started reframing. Instead of just the job, I talk about the values and passions behind it. For example, I love solving problems and organizing chaos, and that's why I work in project management.
Oh, that's so good. That way, even if the role changes, the core of your answer stays consistent. You're still the same person, just expressing it through different jobs.
Right.
Let's talk networking events because that's like the Olympics of introductions. You walk into a room, everyone has name tags, and you know within 30 seconds you're going to be asked, "So what do you do?"
Ugh, networking. My intro used to be a disaster. I'd mumble something vague and people would politely nod and walk away. Then I learned to prepare a short, confident version of my story, like a mini elevator pitch.
Exactly. For me, it was about energy. If I said, I'm Mia, I work in media, with no excitement, people would tune out. But if I added, I'm Mia, I work in media, and I'm obsessed with storytelling and digital content, suddenly people leaned in.
Yes, passion is magnetic. Even if the job itself doesn't sound flashy, enthusiasm makes it memorable.
And also asking questions back. Instead of just giving a dry intro, I'd say, I'm Mia, I work in media. What about you? That flips the spotlight and builds connection.
That's a pro tip right there. Because honestly, the best way to answer "tell me about yourself" is to turn it into a conversation, not a monologue.
Okay, let's pivot. Because tell me about yourself doesn't just happen at work. It happens in relationships too. First dates, meeting in-laws, even just making friends as an adult.
Oh yes, the dreaded first date question. I remember sitting across from someone and hearing, "So, tell me about yourself." And my brain went, "Era 404. I just blurted out, I like pizza." True, but I learned quickly that in personal settings, the best answer is less about credentials and more about character. Like, what do you care about? What makes you laugh? What excites you outside of work?
Exactly. And vulnerability helps. When I started saying things like, I'm Mia, I love writing, and I'm kind of a perfectionist who's learning to chill out, people connected way more. It's honest and it shows growth.
Right, it's not about being perfect, it's about being relatable. Nobody falls in love with someone's resume. They fall in love with someone's quirks and stories.
Well said. And I think friendship works the same way. When you meet someone new and you share a little piece of your real self, like your weird hobby or your guilty pleasure TV show, it opens the door for connection.
You know what's wild? The older I get, the more I realize "tell me about yourself" is less about others and more about me. Like, it forces me to stop and think, who am I right now? Because the answer changes over time.
Absolutely. If you asked me 5 years ago, I would have said, I'm Mia, I'm in my first job, I'm figuring things out. Today, I'd say, I'm Mia, I'm passionate about creativity, and I'm working on balance in life. Same person, different season.
Yes. And 10 years from now, who knows? That's the beauty of it. Your story evolves.
And that's why I love this question. People think it's simple, but it's actually one of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself. It's like a mirror.
Well said. So maybe instead of dreading it, we should see it as an opportunity, a chance to share our journey, not just our job titles.
Exactly. Because your story matters, and the way you tell it can inspire, connect, and even open doors you didn't expect.
Yes.
You know, Alex, we've talked a lot about achievements and identity, but I think the real test of answering "tell me about yourself" is when you've gone through failures, because suddenly your story isn't shiny anymore.
Yeah, and failures are often the hardest parts to talk about, but also the most relatable. For me, I once bombed a project so badly that my manager pulled me aside and basically said, "Alex, what happened?" At the time, I was embarrassed. If someone had asked me, "Tell me about yourself" that week, I probably would have said, "I'm a disaster."
Ouch! Been there. My first big failure was in college. I auditioned for this huge theater production, thought I nailed it, and then didn't even get a call back. It crushed me. For weeks, if someone asked me about myself, all I could think was, I'm not good enough.
Exactly. And that's the danger. We start letting one failure define the whole self. But over time, I realized failures are just chapters. They're not the whole book.
Yes! And actually, failures make your "tell me about yourself" answer richer. Like now, if I talk about my theater rejection, I don't just say I failed. I say, I learned resilience, and it taught me that one closed door doesn't end the story.
That's powerful. And employers, friends, even dates, they respect honesty. When you can say, "I messed up, here's what I learned," it shows growth. That's way more compelling than a perfect story.
You know, I sometimes think struggles are like the glue that holds identity together. Without challenges, we don't really know what we're made of.
True. I think my toughest struggle was during a period of burnout. I was juggling work, family responsibilities, and my personal life. If someone had asked, "Tell me about yourself," I would have said, "I'm tired."
Relatable. But burnout does teach you boundaries. It forces you to redefine yourself beyond productivity. Like I had to ask, am I Mia, the overachiever, or am I Mia, the human being who also needs rest?
Exactly. And that redefinition is part of growth. Honestly, I think the question, "Tell me about yourself," is less about facts and more about perspective. You can tell the same story in a way that sounds defeated or in a way that sounds hopeful.
Yes! Like, I failed my audition, so I quit, versus I failed my audition, but it led me to writing my own play. Same event, totally different self-story.
And the version you choose becomes your identity. It's like self-narration.
Alex, what's one experience that really changed how you answer, "Tell me about yourself"?
I'd say traveling solo for the first time. I went to another country, didn't know the language well, had to navigate trains, restaurants, everything. At first I felt lost, but then I realized, wow, I'm resourceful. So now, when I introduce myself, I sometimes say, "I'm Alex. I love adventure and problem solving," because that trip revealed that side of me.
That's amazing. For me, it was when I started teaching workshops. At first, I thought I wasn't qualified, but when students told me they learned something valuable from me, I realized, okay, I'm not just someone who consumes knowledge. I can also share it. That shifted my self-story.
That's beautiful. And I think that's the magic of life. Every new experience can rewrite the script of who we are, which is why your answer to "tell me about yourself" is never final.
Exactly. It's a living document like a Google Doc that you're constantly editing.
Perfect metaphor. And hopefully not full of typos.
Okay, let's get a little philosophical. Because at some point, tell me about yourself isn't just about jobs, hobbies, or even struggles. It's about values. What drives you?
Agreed. For me, my life philosophy is leave things better than you found them. Whether it's a workplace, a friendship, or even just a small interaction, I want people to feel like they gained something from knowing me. Oh,
I love that. Mine is be curious and kind. Curiosity keeps me learning and kindness keeps me grounded. When I frame my self-introduction with those values, people get a sense of who I really am beyond the surface.
wow, that's powerful. And I think that's a pro tip for listeners. If you're ever stuck answering, "tell me about yourself," try leading with a value, like "I'm someone who values creativity," or "I'm passionate about helping people grow." That's more memorable than just "I work in IT."
Yes, because people connect to values more than titles. Titles change, but values stay.
Right.
You know, Alex, another angle of tell me about yourself is how much other people shape your story. Mentors, teachers, friends, they leave fingerprints on your identity.
Oh, absolutely. I had a mentor early in my career who used to tell me, "don't just say what you do, say why you do it." That advice changed everything. Suddenly, my self-introductions weren't just boring job titles, they had purpose.
That's gold. For me, it was a literature professor in college. I was nervous presenting my ideas, but she looked me in the eye and said, "Mia, your voice matters." That one sentence made me rethink how I saw myself. Now, when I tell people about myself, I don't shrink back. I own my story.
Wow! Isn't it wild how a single sentence can rewrite your inner script? Mentors remind us that sometimes we need someone else to hold up the mirror so we can see ourselves clearly.
Exactly. And it's not just mentors. Even random strangers can impact your identity. Like the barista who once told me, "You always have the best energy when you come in." I thought, I never noticed that about myself. But now I sometimes add, I'm someone who tries to bring positivity into a room.
That's beautiful. And it proves that "tell me about yourself" isn't just answered by us. It's co-authored by the people around us.
Yes.
Okay, Mia, let's get into defining moments. Those experiences where if you had to sum yourself up in one story, this would be it.
Ew, I like that. For me, it was when I published my first short story online. It wasn't perfect, and I was terrified of criticism, but the response was surprisingly warm. That moment defined me as a writer, not just someone who scribbles in notebooks. So now when people ask me about myself, that's part of my identity. I'm a storyteller.
I love that. For me, it was leading a team project under insane pressure. Half the people thought we'd fail. I had to rally everyone, calm conflicts, and keep things moving. We actually delivered on time. That's when I realized, okay, I'm a leader. And that identity stuck with me.
And that's the power of defining moments. They become anchor points in your story. You can always return to them when you're asked to introduce yourself.
Exactly. And if you don't think you have one, look back at small wins. Sometimes it's not big dramatic events. Sometimes it's the quiet choices that reveal who you are.
Okay, serious talk is great, but let's be real. Sometimes the best tell me about yourself answers are funny ones. Like when people say, I'm a professional coffee addict, or Netflix is basically my soulmate.
Oh yeah, humor makes you human. My go-to funny intro is, "Hi, I'm Alex, and my hobbies include starting books I never finish." It always gets a laugh. And it's true.
I love that. Mine is, I'm Mia and I have a black belt in procrastination, but somehow still get things done. People instantly relate, because who doesn't procrastinate?
And honestly, humor breaks the ice. It's like saying, hey, I don't take myself too seriously. And that invites connection.
Totally! It's also memorable. People might forget your job title, but they'll remember that you said you're in a committed relationship with coffee.
You know what I've been thinking, Mia? Over time, the answer to tell me about yourself shifts from what you do to who you are becoming.
Exactly. In your 20s, it's career heavy. In your 30s and 40s, it's often about family, purpose, growth. Later in life, it might be about legacy, the story you want to leave behind.
Yes, like if you ask my grandfather to tell you about himself, he doesn't list jobs. He says, I'm a father, a gardener, and a lover of old music. It's identity stripped down to essence.
That's beautiful! And it makes me think, maybe the real goal is to get to that essence sooner. To answer, not with labels, but with truths.
Exactly. If I had to sum myself up today, I'd say I'm Alex, someone who loves solving problems, making people laugh, and leaving things better than I found them. That feels true.
And I'd say, I'm Mia, someone who values stories, creativity, and kindness, and who's learning to embrace imperfection. That feels true for me.
And that's it. That's the heart of the question. Not perfection, not rehearsed lines, but truth.
Yabba! A living truth, always evolving, but always yours.
Right.
Alex, one thing we haven't touched on yet is how culture affects the way people answer, tell me about yourself. Because it's not the same everywhere.
Oh, 100%. In some cultures, people emphasize family first. Like introductions start with, I'm the daughter of so-and-so, or I come from this town. In others, it's more individual. I'm Alex, I'm a software engineer, I like hiking.
Right. And I think that shows how identity is collective in some places and personal in others. When I traveled to Japan, I noticed people often introduced themselves by mentioning the group or company they belonged to. It wasn't just me, it was we.
That's fascinating. Meanwhile, in the US, it's often career-focused, almost like you're handing out mini resumes every time you meet someone.
Exactly. And honestly, neither approach is wrong, they just reflect different values. But it makes you realize how flexible the "tell me about yourself" question really is. The answer changes depending on cultural expectations.
And for people who move between cultures, it can be confusing. Like, how much of myself do I highlight? My personal hobbies? My family background? My work identity? It's like wearing different masks in different rooms.
Yes, and maybe the trick is to see those masks not as fake, but as different expressions of the same person, like facets of a diamond.
Beautiful metaphor. So maybe the global lesson is this. No matter where you are, your self-story should honor the context, but still carry your truth.
Speaking of context, let's talk about the digital world. Because today, people often introduce themselves online before they ever meet in person.
Oh yeah, digital identity is huge. Think about social media bios. That tiny space where you basically have to answer, "Tell me about yourself" in one sentence.
Yes! And people stress over it. Do I write something witty? Do I list my job? Do I put a quote? It's like curating a billboard version of yourself.
And the irony is, those bios can be both true and misleading. You can say coffee lover, traveler, dreamer, but that doesn't capture the full depth of a person.
Right. And then there's LinkedIn, where your intro has to be professional. Suddenly it's all experienced strategist in X industry. Meanwhile, your Instagram says dog mom and beach enthusiast. Both are true, but they're worlds apart.
And that's the digital challenge, reconciling your multiple identities across platforms. I sometimes wonder, if someone put together all my bios, what picture would they get?
Probably Alex, professional leader by day, meme lord by night.
Accurate.
Alex, we've been unpacking this question for hours now, and I think the big takeaway is that identity isn't fixed. It evolves.
Exactly. Tell me about yourself is like a snapshot. It captures who you are at this moment, not forever. 5 years ago, I wouldn't have answered the same way I do today.
Same here. And honestly, that's freeing. You don't have to get the answer perfect. You just have to be honest about where you are now.
Yes. And maybe the real art is learning to embrace that evolution. Instead of dreading the question, see it as an opportunity to share your current chapter.
Well said. And you know what? If our listeners take anything away from this conversation, I hope it's this. Your story is valuable no matter how messy or unfinished it feels.
Preach, because none of us are finished products, and maybe that's the beauty of being human. We're all works in progress, introducing ourselves as we grow.
Wow, Alex, I feel like we just took the longest deep dive ever into one question. Who knew Tell Me About Yourself had this many layers?
Seriously, we went from childhood to careers, failures, humor, global culture, even digital bios. I think we covered it all.
And hopefully for anyone listening, this gives you new ways to think about your own answer. Whether it's in a job interview, on a first date, or just looking in the mirror, your story matters.
Absolutely. And remember, you don't have to get it perfect. Just be real, be relevant, and let your story evolve.
Well, that wraps it up for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to this conversation. If you enjoyed it, share it with a friend, and maybe even practice your own Tell Me About Yourself after this.
And as always, stay curious, stay authentic, and keep telling your story.
Until next time, take care.